listening to the Today's Mama podcast with your host, Rachel Hersher.
Welcome to part 2 of the Stasia Savasuk interview. If you're joining us fresh from part 1, girl, we're just getting started. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, stop now. Do not pass go. Head back to part 1 and start from the beginning. I promise you don't want to miss anything. And we're going to build on some of the conversations we had in part 1. Stasia's a great listen. You will not regret doubling down on this 2-part episode. A quick refresher, Stasia is a style coach and body positivity advocate over at stasiasavasuk.com. You can find a link to her website over in the show notes. Today, we're going to get to her amazing daughter, her amazing TEDx talk, the standing ovation that had me crying all the ugly tears, and how having a child that looks differently demanded that Stasia move past her feelings about her own body and onto accepting every bit of it. Enjoy. From this point, though, I want to talk about your amazing daughter because I think she's been a big part of your journey, right?
Yep.
But I want to bounce back to pregnancy really quick because what was your pregnancy with her like? Because you kind of maybe midway through your pregnancy expected some complications or something different to happen.
Yeah. So my pregnancy with her was really hard. We found out early on in my pregnancy that it started with the screenings and, oh, I'm sure it's going to be fine. And then you do the next level. Oh, that's not a good thing, but I'm sure it's going to be fine. I'm sure. And then it wasn't fine. And we found out that, during an early ultrasound that she had quite a few physical anomalies. And that's when things started to get hard. We had a choice at that point to what we wanted to do with the pregnancy. We kept the pregnancy. So, just having to make those kind of decisions are not the kind of decisions you want to be making when you're 20 weeks pregnant, So that was really, that was awful and hard.
And I'll tell you, I've been in a similar state about when they say to make those decisions.
Yeah.
We thought our daughter had Down syndrome, and it was the same thing with every test that came back.
Yeah.
It was pointing to that. I didn't get an amnio because I didn't want to ever feel responsible if I caused something to go wrong with that pregnancy. My need to know was not as great as my need for the baby to be safe and to not cause a complication. And I don't judge anybody who gets the amnio.
Yeah.
I just was too scared to do that. And ultimately, I have to tell you, my daughter ended up being born. She did not have Down syndrome. She didn't have any complications at all. It was just a fluke how she just seemed to have every symptom, right? But my point really is I was asked at so many different times if we wanted to continue the pregnancy and that it was time to make a choice and those things. For us, it wasn't a choice I needed to make. I knew I would continue the pregnancy no matter what. But even just hearing the question and hearing those words and processing that through your mind is a fairly traumatic experience, I think.
Yeah, it is. And it was never a choice for us either. We were going to maintain the pregnancy. Just having the question posed was really it was an affront almost. It was really...
Yeah, it shakes you.
It shakes you. So it was, as, we went on with the pregnancy, it was high risk. So I was getting ultrasounds all the time. And it was... with the compilation of things that we knew at that point, there was a lot of fear that she wasn't going to survive pregnancy and she wasn't going to survive childbirth. So I had a lot of anxiety in that pregnancy. Every time there was something, I was like, oh my God, the baby died. Oh my God. It was just constant for me when I would go 3 minutes without feeling it was really hard. And I wasn't prepared for that. I wasn't, you go on to get pregnant and you don't think you're going to be the one that has the problems because usually in your circle, there aren't very many people that have kids with physical differences or, you know what I mean? It's just rare. And so it never occurred to me.
Things seem to just work out most of the time.
Most of the time, which is unbelievable in and of itself, right? That how well it works most of the time. I went into pregnancy and into my labor with a lot of trepidation because I didn't know what was going to happen even when she was born. So that was really hard. But she came 5 weeks early and I was able to, I had a natural childbirth with her with a team. There was a team of doctors in the room for sure when I gave birth to her. And it's all cumulative, right? And sort of like the shame story. And the neonatologist had taken her right when she was born, so I didn't get a chance to see her. And when they brought her to me, when this doctor brought her to me, I would like to write this man a letter someday. I know I feel like I'm repeating myself because I said this in my TEDx talk, but she was wrapped, he had her swaddled so I couldn't see her. And he laid her in my arms and just went on this list of all the ways that her body was wrong. And it was the hardest. I had just given birth to a human child who didn't die, who they thought would probably die. And I'm holding her in my arms. And the way he described her to me was as if I had just given birth to a monster. I mean, it sounds awful for me to say that, but the list of things that he just went on and on and on about, I was absolutely terrified to look at her. And when I had finally built up the courage to pull back the blanket and see her, and she was perfect. And I got really scared, right? I got really afraid that this is the way the world is going to see her, as this little broken person, this person with a wrong body, as if there is only one right way to have a body. She survived. What is not right about that?
And now I am crying. Well, and I have to tell you that watching your TED Talk, I think probably everybody says this to you, but you go through and you talk about a little more about her, but at the end, she got a standing ovation.
She did.
From that crowd. And honestly, I was ugly crying through that whole thing. I mean, I am about to just fall apart. But I mean, what a light she's got in that face of hers.
I know. It was the most, so having like her conception to the moment on that TED stage, the TEDx stage, when I came off the stage. Yes. And I had talked about what the lessons she had taught me, where I had spent my life trying to protect her and not make sure that she didn't get made fun of by forcing her to be a certain way when she wanted to be and express herself in a completely different way. My fear of her shame was creating shame instead of taking it away, right? So I made a lot of mistakes, but to have all of this happen, and then I walk off the stage and I had no idea what was going to, I just got off the stage, and then the MC came up, and you don't get to see all of this in the video. And he came up and he had seen Raisa in the front row and said, Raisa's here. Raisa, would you please stand up? She stood up and she turned around. In the place, I mean, they don't show it. They don't show in the video. Like, you could see a few people standing up. The place went bananas. I was on the stage, ugly crying myself, bawling. And it was this moment where I thought, that jerk of a doctor that thought she was all wrong just inspired an entire room of people. There were grown men and women tears everywhere. And it's been this 10-year or 11-year journey now with her of me wrestling with like my own body shame, but then how can I have body shame when her body is actually different, right? How can I be ashamed of my skinny arms and my heavy thighs when I just have a regular body? There's nothing wrong with my body. There's nothing even outside the norm with my body, but I still carried shame. But I would tell her body was fine. How much did I really believe it if I couldn't believe my own truth? You know what I mean? So I struggled with that for so long. And it wasn't until a couple years ago. I mean, it took me, even with this story, even having this child that looks different than other kids, it still was hard for me to accept my body and to not think my body was a problem. But then in the other breath, tell her body was fine. But how much could she trust me when I didn't want to go swimming with her because I was ashamed of my thighs? Right? The shame that niggles its way into our body and takes over our logic and our thought and our brains and our hearts. It is so powerful that it can override my good sense with my life experience. You know what I mean? Like, that's how powerful body shame is. I'm hot and bothered now.
And I am like wiping my face with a towel from crying.
You're listening to the Today's Mama podcast with your host, Rachel Hersher. We'll be back right after this.
A lot of people ask what natural solutions and alternatives there are for anxiety, and it's something we end up talking about with lots of guests on the show. Side note, be sure to check out episode number 4 with Dr. Meg Meeker. It's all about anxiety. Now, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not giving you medical advice, but I will tell you what works at our house. We've been taking a micronutrient designed for the brain to help with calm, mood, and focus. It's backed by studies in over 25 scientific journals, and I'll tell you, it's helped a lot. My teenage daughter has a tough time falling asleep at night. I picture a tiny little hamster running around in her brain, telling her what to worry about. If she takes 2 QMax each morning, she falls right asleep, no problem. And she even brought me her math grade to show me that she'd brought it from a C to an A and told me she felt like it was because when she takes her vitamins, it's easier for her to sit still in class. Now, it's not for everyone, but if you want to give it a shot, you can use the coupon code 20TODAYSMAMA to get 20% off your order on Amazon. I'll put a link in the show notes, or you can just search for QMax on Amazon. Again, that code is 20TODAYSMAMA, 20TODAYSMAMA to get 20% off your order on Amazon. Back to the show.
And now back to the Today's Mama podcast with your host, Rachel Hersher.
There's a statement you said when you said this doctor that thought she was all wrong. And she had a long list of things that were actually going to be a challenge for her in her body, right?
Yep.
And then the same thought happens where it's like, how many of us think that we're all wrong? Just that phrase, thought she was all wrong. It applies to every one of us at some point in our lives.
Yeah. And I think that's why the talk resonated with so many people, because man, woman, child, we all connect with that feeling of being all wrong.
Yeah.
We all connect with it. It's a human feeling, and it's one we don't need to own. It's not ours to own.
No. And you know what? Your daughter has done, I think, a really good job of not owning it, right? What does she do when somebody makes fun of her on the playground or points out her differences? Because some people, and kids especially, are pretty open and verbal about that.
Yeah. You know what? I think grown-ups are worse than kids in a lot of cases, because grown-up, you're like, you should know better. Like, a kid is one thing, because they maybe haven't been learned or taught, or, but grown-ups should know better, and they often don't. And so she gets stared at a lot. So that happens a lot. She gets stared at a lot. She knows she gets stared at a lot. Like, me at her age would have never left the house because I did not have the confidence that she has. And she'll just be like, Mama, look, that person's staring at me. And I'm like, you're going to do your thing? And she's like, yeah. So she plays this little game with people when they stare at her, and she'll like look away. And so that they'll stare at her, and then she quickly looks at them and tries to catch them looking at her. And then they quickly look away, and then she'll look back away and wait for the gaze to come back to her. And then she'll swoop around and try to catch him again. And she thinks it's so funny. But she's like, I don't understand. Like, I'm different, but do they have to stare? Like, it doesn't hurt her feelings. And it blows my mind that it doesn't hurt her feelings,
It's pretty amazing.
Oh, I think it's awesome.
You've talked about her having kids say something to her on the playground, and if she tells you about it, or if you realize that she says, yeah, they're probably having a bad day.
They're having a bad day. It happened yesterday. She came home and said she was playing Foursquare on the playground, and she was like, and so-and-so called me a moron. And of course, like, my eyes get as big as saucers, and I'm ready to turn into a monster. And I was like, keeping my cool, like, well, Sissy, we call her Sissy, how did that make you feel when he called you a moron? She was like, what do you mean? Didn't make me feel anything. I'm not a moron. And I was like,
because she knows what the truth is.
Because she knows the truth.
Yeah.
She was like, I'm not a moron. She was like, I couldn't even believe it, because I wrote my talk a while ago, and we haven't like done a lot of talking about it. And how she was like, he was just probably having another bad day. And I was like, you're living the truth. I did a whole talk about this, and you're still living the truth.
Which is another way of saying, Yeah, that they don't feel good about themselves,
Yeah.
and that has nothing to do
It
with
has
me.
nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with me. And all the stuff that we are subjected to, not all, because some people can be mean, but even when the mean people are mean, it doesn't have anything to do with us. And this is something that I'm learning, and she's teaching me right now. I just had this thing where my talk was picked up by Big TED, and TED Ideas did an article about it, and they put it on their Facebook page. And I thought, this is so amazing. And I went and I looked at the comments. It was a total rookie mistake. And I couldn't believe how mean people could be to me, telling me how ugly I was and how I had nothing worth saying and how I was, terrible mother. I got all the comments. It was hundreds of them. It was unbelievable. And I was feeling a little shook by it. And she was like, Mama, why do you even care? None of it's true. They're just having a bad day. And I was like, oh, you're right.
And it's amazing how we're willing, or so many people are willing, to play out their bad days in writing on the internet.
And it always comes back to who are these people that do this? They're not my people, but when you're not prepared for it, it can be a little bit of a kick in the gut, and then I was like, okay, I'm fine. I'm over it. It's fine. But, we can be caught off guard, and these things can penetrate us. And I think they penetrate us when we believe the story that they're trying to tell us. And the more I can undo that story, that I'm not pretty enough, smart enough, intelligent enough, I don't have enough to say, that you know what I mean? The more that I can believe my own truth, the less that stuff penetrates me. And that's the work. It's the work. When somebody says something about my body now, I'm like, what are you talking about? My body's fine. It's not a problem. But when I believed my body was a problem, those insults hit me to my core. So the work isn't changing everybody else's bad behavior. The work is not believing everybody else's nonsense thoughts that they're projecting onto me, right? So it's always me coming back to me doing the work. I did belong on that stage. I am a good mother. I did look good in my pink dress and cowboy boots. I don't care what everybody says.
You looked like a sly fox in that pink dress.
I thought I looked amazing. I felt good, right? That's what matters. I didn't get on that stage to look good for anybody but me. I don't care. But it's that part of you that does care, that connects to those comments. I call them giblets, that negative voice inside your head. And my giblets will grab onto that and be like, see, told you. So it's just a matter of quieting those giblets and saying, no, it's not true. That's not a narrative that I'm going to choose to believe, but it's hard work. But, I can look at her and I go, well, hell, if she can do it, she's 11, buck up, mama, get with the program.
Well, and she also has her own style as well. She has a very specific style that she prefers, and she's bold about it. So describe her style choice.
Her style choice is one that most people would consider to be masculine. And I'm careful with the words that I use, because in our house, we don't talk about there being boy clothes and girl clothes. We talk about clothes. And this is something that she's taught us. And she would get frustrated when we would go to a store and say, Mommy, why do I have to shop in the boys department? Why can't I be a girl like this? Good question. Why can't you be a girl like this? Why is everything so categorical, right? So she still is like, I'm a girl who likes to wear button-down shirts and bow ties. Why is this a problem?
And they're adorable.
And she looks amazing. But this was, I kind of feel like double whammy as a mama, you know what I mean? You have the kid that has the unique features. And I think, okay, this is going to be my work. And that ends up being part of it, the least of my work was me, the real work for me in so many ways. One has been more about me getting comfortable and, confident in my own body, my today body, but also not projecting my fears onto her to say, well, you look different and people are going to treat you and they're not going to think this about you. So let's make sure that you fit in as best we can and make sure that you're wearing all the cutest girl clothes and the little dresses with the bloomers when she was little and the bootcut jeans and the cap sleeve t-shirts and, the matchy barrettes and shoes or whatever. And me really trying to force that on her and her just not having it. She wouldn't have it. And It was, again, I mean, she's just like, the lessons this kid teaches me left, right, and sideways, I'm telling you. And it was me trying to protect her by wearing certain clothes and completely ignoring who she was in the world. And me, to everything she thought she knew to be true about herself, I was telling her, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. That is not who you are. This is who you are. I was taking her intuitive sense, her own internal wisdom, and saying, you're wrong. And we wonder why grown-ups, why we end up broken. You know, we wonder why we've lost our sense of self. We wonder why we've lost our ability to hone in and tune in and trust our own intuition. Yeah. It's because people sometimes with good intentions knock it out of you. I had a good intention. It was to protect my kid, to make it so there was one less thing that people would make fun of her about, right? But instead, I was taking away her ability to stand tall and proud and strong in her body. When she knew who she was, she could advocate for herself. If I stuck her in a dress today and threw her on the playground, it made her show up in a costume, something that didn't allow her to tap into and access her own soul fire, and then somebody made fun of her, where would we be?
And I love that you used the word costume, because that would be a costume for her.
It would be an absolute costume. She wouldn't even do it for Halloween. It would be that repulsive and unauthentic for her.
So what do our clothes as grown-ups or teenager or wherever we are, what do our clothes say about what we believe about ourselves?
I think our clothes say a lot. And I often hear people say they don't have a connection to their clothes, or they don't think their clothes make them feel anything. And so often my response will be, well, will you wear sequins to work tomorrow? God, no. Why not? Well, because I'd feel such and such. Yes, our clothes make us feel a certain way. So our today clothes, I can see so many women in the world and they're fidgeting. Do you see people fidget, adjusting their waistbands, adjusting their pants, moving, fidgety. And that tells me they're struggling with their body and they're trying to hide their body. I think so many women I see are hiding their today bodies because they're ashamed of their today bodies, because they think their today body is a problem and they wish they had their yesterday body. But when they had their yesterday body, they wish they had their day before that body. It's this constant thing that never shifts. So I think our clothes can connect us to who we are on the inside. My shirt is not brave, but the fact that I can wear something that it can connect me to my brave, it can help me cultivate something deep inside of me. And so that's when I get dressed. I don't just get dressed to get dressed. I get dressed to connect to soul fire, to connect to that place inside me that is that place underneath the wound and the fear and the shame. There's magic in us. If I can connect to that magic and reflect it on the outside, then the practice of getting dressed, because I don't think it's just a thing, I think it's a practice of getting dressed and connecting to soul fire, can shift the way we move in the world. It doesn't mean that we ignore our today's circumstances. We're having a bad day, things are hard, we're struggling, we're exhausted. If we can connect to soul fire and do like that doctor told me, make it hurt more. If we can go to that place inside us that has the strength and the resilience and the tenacity to be able to navigate through that hard time, we're going to be a lot more successful rather than stewing in the bad day. You know what I mean? So if I'm feeling ugly, I can get dressed in a way that perpetuates my ugly. Or I can get dressed in a way that reminds me that I'm brave and I'm resilient and I'm fierce and I've got, you know what I mean? Like I'm bold. And then I can go, okay, so now how am I going to navigate these feelings of ugliness? Because they're just a feeling. It's not who I am. How do I navigate my way through it? So I don't know. I think the practice of getting dressed and choosing clothes that connect us to soul fire and allow us to cultivate sort of the goodness inside of us is like kind of life-changing. It is for me. I can tell you that.
And the title of your TEDx talk was, What If Changing Your Pants Could Change Your Life?
Yes.
You're listening to the Today's Mama podcast with your host, Rachel Hersher. We'll be back right after this.
enjoying this topic today, might I recommend a few others from the archive? Check out the one right before this, episode 27 with Jody Hildebrandt on the stories we tell ourselves and getting to the truth. I think you'll also love episode 15 with Debbie Reber on raising differently wired kids, optimism, and the word instead. And because we're talking about our bodies, let's throw in that classic Gabby Blair episode number 13, where we talk all about women, abortion, and birth control. It's a barn burner. I think that should keep you busy for a while. You can find links to those and more at todaysmama.com/podcast.
And now back to the Today's Mama podcast with your host, Rachel Hersher.
So, how have you seen women change their life by changing their pants?
I have seen it happen. I've seen lives change. I can't even tell you how many times, dozens and dozens of times, hundreds of times. And how it's when a woman can stand strong in her today body, wear clothes that don't hide her, but make her feel like the bold, brave, powerful, grounded, effervescent, doesn't even matter what your word is. The way when a woman can feel that way in her body, she can stand up and do and be and say things she wouldn't otherwise do. Right? So women who have come on this journey with me through style school will, change their pants. And how does it change their life? They ask for a raise that they never would have asked for before. They stand up and they speak up in a meeting where they never would have dared to before. They advocate for their kids in an IEP meeting in a way they never would have before. They run for office. Women have come through style school who have said, I have so much shame. I don't dare to go and, to the state house because I don't know what to wear and it paralyzes me. They come through style school, they run for office. They take up leadership positions that they never dared to take up before because shame paralyzed them. There's a woman, I talk about her in my TED Talk. She was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And instead of wallowing in the pain and the sorrow of what this meant for her, she got dressed every day and said, I am brave, I am powerful. And she showed up for cancer. And there was like a 4% chance she was going to go into remission. And she did. And she said, it's because I used the practice of getting dressed every single day to connect me to what I knew I could be and who I was on the inside. I don't think changing her pants saved her life. I don't think it cured cancer, but her optimism, her bravery, her power, her willingness to step into her strength and not give up, that probably did.
So it's really a practice of telling the truth and then dressing to match it.
Yes, absolutely. Telling the truth. It's ignoring the lies. It's telling the truth. It's connecting to your own truth, even though it's hard, even though it's scary, even though it means you're raising your own bar. And I think that is what's so hard for people. We don't want to raise our own bar because it holds us to an expectation of we can do better, be better people. And that's scary. But we're women and we can do hard things.
Girl, sing it. You are totally right. All of this good stuff. You are empowering women. I mean, I want to just say preach, sister, preach. At Stasia's Style School for Women, right? It's a 5-week course. And do you care if we do just a quick review of what you do in the weeks?
Yeah, no, let's do it.
Okay, so week 1 is power words.
Week 1 is power words. It's all about who am I and how do I want to show up in the world. We started in week 1 and it takes the whole 5 weeks. It's the foundation of what we do. We're establishing our North Star. When something feels off, we go back to our power words. Who are you? What's missing? What are you not connecting to today? Right? So it's something we refer back to over and over and over again.
And I just had this whole flashback to the anchor man when she's like warming up to go on and she keeps saying power, power, power. I'm going to put that GIF in the show notes so that you know, like my monkey mind, where everything goes. That's why there was a short, quiet pause there because I make Rachel come back. So week 2 is rename, reframe, and unshame. And I feel like I'm constantly talking about reframing here, but it's truly a superpower if you can develop this. So,
yes.
This takes us once again to reflecting on the stories or the lies that we tell ourselves. So yeah, what is week 2 all about?
So it's the practice of renaming, reframing, unshaming the conversations we have with and about our bodies, right? So it's changing the language, changing the words we use to describe our bodies. It's changing the lens through which we see our bodies. Instead of looking at our bodies and just seeing everything that's wrong, what if you looked and you celebrated what was right, what you loved about your body? What if you wrote a letter to your belly and said, Belly, I've struggled with you, and I'm sorry. Let's move on together, right? So we do a lot of work. We collect our body's data and we learn to understand our body's data. What I mean by that is so often women are getting dressed to hide their bodies, where they're ignoring their shape and the parts of their bodies that they really should be celebrating, right? So if we can collect our body's data, learn to understand the shape of our body, and then think about the clothes we're trying to put on their body, we can create some harmony there instead of disharmony, which so often happens. And I can think about my own body shame when I was struggling. I never collected my body's data, and everything I wore exaggerated my hips. My hips that I was most self-conscious of, I was putting clothes on that made them look 5 times bigger than they actually were. I wasn't paying attention to the data, right? So learning to dress my body in a way that was balanced and proportioned so I could sort of like actually see what my body looked like instead of exaggerating it in the wrong direction, right?
Yes.
So that's a big part of the work that we do in week 2. And when we can start to see ourselves differently, we can start to unshame. With like the unshaming happens slow, slow, slow. But when we start realizing, oh, wait a minute, I thought I was hiding my belly, but actually I was putting a neon sign on it saying, look here, maybe I won't do that anymore, you know? And it's often just like easy peasy, change the silhouette, everything disappears, you know?
Yes. Okay, so week 3 is power colors. And I'm pretty sure mine are
Yeah.
black and olive green. Boring. I'm boring that way. But I feel like my personality brings like the yellow and the orange.
Yeah, I don't think there is a boring color.
I just have embraced this year is that it's like a headache to me to figure out what to wear. But I know that I look good in black, and I know that olive green like really pops my eyes out. And so now half of my closet is those colors, and it has just made getting dressed so much easier.
Yeah. If I were to say like the color of my soul is fuchsia, I know this for sure. When I need something super powerful, I go fuchsia, which is why I wore a fuchsia dress on the TEDx stage. But aside from that, my closet is gray, black, and blue. Those are my best colors. They're my favorite colors. I love them. They make me feel gritty and raw and edgy and fierce. They connect me to like the tough parts of me, you know? And I love them. They're my best colors. So I got no judgment on black as a power color. I can tell you right now. I love it.
Okay, I love it. I feel less Steve Jobsy now. I mean, I don't have any mock turtlenecks, and I'm not wearing those white cross trainers, but
hey, if it connects them to Soulfire, I'm all for it. No judgment here.
that's Steve Jobs Soulfire, those cross trainers, and that's totally cool. All right, week 4, power accessories. Now, this is an area I'm bad at because I can't stand to manage the things. And actually, maybe that's the sign to me that accessories aren't my thing because I end up fidgeting with them.
Yeah.
They're distracting to me. But talk about accessories.
We're in style school right now. We're in power accessory week right now. And I like to think of accessories as the flavor changers. I always compare it to a vinaigrette. I'm a little bit nutty here, but if you think about like your oil and your vinegar is your base, and then you can change it to be a maple vinaigrette, a honey vinaigrette, a spicy mustard vinaigrette, a rosemary vinaigrette, a thyme vinaigrette, right? Like you can change the flavor. That's what accessories do for me. So I have a very minimal closet with quite a few accessories. So I can wear the same clothes over and over again, and I can change the flavor. So one day, if I want to feel especially playful, I can put on playful things. If I want to feel edgy and badass, I can put on those accessories. If I want to feel strong in my body, I can put those on. If I want to feel bold, I can put that on, right? So I use accessories to change the flavor. I wear clothes that fit my body, that fit my silhouette, and then I add flavor with accessories. I wear a lot of accessories, but I'm really particular because I have to wear accessories that I don't feel.
Yeah, that's a part. Wear accessories that you don't feel, for sure.
That you don't feel. So I wear big earrings. I wear leather earrings. They don't weigh. They're like invisible weight earrings. So they're like, like you can see them and they're beautiful, but they don't weigh. I'm wearing a necklace right now that has a leather cord because I can do leather on my body, but a lot of like bracelets, clunky things, can't stand, it drives me bananas. But I could wear like a leather cuff that's tight to my skin because then it doesn't clunk when I type because I'm on my computer a lot. So I'm particular, but I also have paid attention to the materials that I like and the materials that I don't like. I don't like wooden jewelry. I don't like plastic jewelry. I don't like pearls. I don't like a lot of fancy things. My things have to be leather or raw cut stones or like metal. That's what I like. So I've pared it down to what I like and what doesn't feel fussy. Anytime you're fussy, it's disconnecting you from the present moment, right? We don't need to be fussy.
Totally. Okay. There may be a world of accessories out there for me. There might.
There might be.
I will explore. Week 5, closet curation.
We just go through our stuff and we get rid of the stuff that doesn't connect us to our power words is basically the work that we do. So if you try on a pair of pants and they make you feel bad about yourself, it astounds me the number of women that wear pants every day that make fun of them.
Yeah.
We don't let people make fun of us, but we let our pants make fun of us. Seriously?
Our pants can be the biggest jerks.
Our pants.
Break up with them.
Passive aggressive. They can be moody. They can be temperamental, but we keep washing them and putting them back in the drawer. I'm like, no, get rid of all of those things that make you feel bad about yourself. They're not nice to you, right? We are grown women. We do not need to be in a relationship with a pair of pants that are mean to us. Come on now.
Those jeans are a bad boyfriend.
Bad boyfriend. That's right. And so that week is about getting rid of all of those things that make fun of you and that are mean to you and that are nasty to you and that tell you like your butt's too big, your boobs are too small, your blah, blah. Anything that makes you have those thoughts, gone. You don't need to own those things because you can own things that say, damn girl, you look good. Like let's own those things, right?
I think I'm a candidate for style school. I'm literally raising my hand right now. I know they run in 5-week cycles. When is your next one?
The next one is in April.
Okay. And for those people discovering this episode of the podcast in July, where can they get information about style school and like sign up and all that good stuff?
They can go to my website, stasiasavasuk.com. They're going to have to look at the show notes because I know nobody's going to know how to spell that.
I know. The show notes will be fantastic. And I will include my phonetic spelling of your name along with the real spelling because really that was a treat.
Yeah, I have it even the phonetic spelling on my website so people can have an idea. And then I'm also on Instagram, so I'll talk about when the next session of Style School is coming. I launch Style School 4 times a year, and I keep the numbers contained so that we can run in small groups and get to know each other and see each other because that's the magic of Style School really is the getting to know each other, connecting with each other, saying, wait a minute, I remember you said this thing the other day. Now you're saying, like, what's going on here? We can start to, it's the intimacy that allows us to connect and explore and be brave in a space that's cultivated for kindness. So
I love it.
That's why I launch 4 times a year because I don't want to oversell any one session. So I like to spread it out.
You're going to find me in one of those sessions.
Oh, I'm going to be looking for you.
Yeah. All in black. That will be me. But I may put a leather cuff on. I don't know. I may mix things up.
Sometimes you got to get a little wild.
Seriously. Okay. No, here's what I loved. From talking about giving birth to bikinis, to how we dressed our bodies, to hiking. It's all had to do with these insanely amazing bodies that we have and how to appreciate them more. So to close this all out, I would love for you to leave us with your favorite quote and let you add a few thoughts of your own to it if you want, but hit us with that.
Okay, so my favorite quote is by John O'Donohue, and it's part of a longer quote, but I'll read to you the piece that I love the most. There is a place in you where you have never been wounded, where there is still a sureness in you, where there is a seamlessness in you, and where there is a confidence and tranquility in you. That quote to me is so powerful because I think that we spend so much time thinking that we're a hot mess all the time. We're always worried about all the things that we're not, the things that we're not good at, the problems that, we get caught up in our personality stuff, and we forget that there is a place inside of us that has never been wounded, where there's a stillness inside of us. And I when I talk about the work we do in Style School, when I say, who are you and how do you want to show up in the world? That's what I'm talking about. That place inside you that has never been wounded. If you can connect to that part of you and live that piece of you, then you can navigate the hard stuff because you're connected to your soul's truth, your soul fire, your essence, right? So that quote to me is something that I drop on people all the time when they're like, I can't do it. I'm just a hot mess. And I say, yeah, maybe that's what you're experiencing right now, but that is not who you are. So I love that quote so much because it reminds me that under the chaos, there is truth. And that's what I always want to try to connect to.
Breathe that one in. There's a place in you where you have never been wounded, where there is still a sureness in you, where there's a seamlessness in you, and where there's a confidence and tranquility in you.
Isn't it beautiful?
So perfect.
I love it.
Yes. Okay. Now I know we hit this really quickly when we were talking about Style School, but if people want to follow you online, where are all the places they can find you?
They can find me on Instagram. I hang out on Instagram. It's my favorite. I have a Facebook page and then my website. That's all I do. I don't go anyplace else. Those are my 3 places that I hang out.
Okay. So spell your name for everybody.
Okay. First name, Stasia, Stasia. Last name, Savasuk, SAV as in Victor, ASUK. That's my name.
Perfect. So we will find you there. And then, you know what? Anytime I'm in a hard situation, I'm going to yell at myself, make it hurt more, and think of you. Come on, Rachel, make it hurt more.
Make it hurt more. But you know what? It's true. If we can lean into the discomfort of something, on the other side is freedom.
Yeah.
Right?
And a little celebration. So I'm all about it.
Yeah.
Okay, I have loved chatting with you today, and I will be seeing you in Style School.
That sounds great, Rachel. This was fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh, thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe and leave us a review. You can find the show notes and more episodes at todaysmama.com/podcast. I'd love to hear from you. If you've heard anything on this podcast that has helped you shift in your parenting, the way you talk to yourself, or just the way you think about something, drop us a line at podcast@todaysmama.com. Catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Today's Mama podcast with Rachel Hersher. To find out more, go to todaysmama.com. That's todaysmama.com. Today's Mama, connecting moms and families with the best of today.